show you something almost nobody knows. Beneath thousands of feet of dark water, there is something waiting. Not a ship, not a cave, not even something scientists expected to find. And for years, nobody knew it was there. Tonight, I'm going to take you there. Stay with me, because what happens next becomes even stranger. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you're floating on a small research boat out on Grand Traverse Bay in Lake Michigan. The water beneath you is dark. Even in summer, it stays cold down there. It's 2007. A man named Dr. Mark Hawley leans over the side of the boat, watching a sonar screen. He's searching for a shipwreck, one that sank long ago, one that has never been found. The screen hums quietly, line after line of gray static, and then something changes. A shape, large, solid, wrong, not a ship at all. You can almost feel his breath catch in his throat. He pulls on his scuba gear, feel the weight of it settling onto his shoulders, the tightness of the mask against his face. And then, slowly, he lowers himself into the water. The surface closes above him. The world instantly becomes quieter. Only his breathing remains now. Tiny particles drift past the mask. His flashlight cuts through the blue darkness. Everything else disappears. 20 feet, 30 feet. The light above him fades into a soft haze. No wind down here. No voices. Just breath. In and out. Echoing. And then he sees it. At first, he almost misses it. One stone. Then another. Then another. Until his eyes realize they are perfectly aligned. Too straight. Too deliberate. Almost waiting for someone to notice. He follows it. Fin stroke after fin stroke, gliding just above the sand. And then the line ends. But not in nothing. It ends in a circle. Dozens of stones, arranged with quiet, deliberate purpose. And just beyond it, the sand drops away into a steep ledge, disappearing into darker water below. If you saw a photograph of this circle, you might think of Stonehenge. Except these stones are barely 2 feet tall, a miniature echo of something ancient. For a moment, just imagine standing there, yourself. The lake feels impossibly old. You wonder how many people stood on this very ground long before the water ever arrived. News spreads quickly. People begin calling it Lake Michigan Stonehenge. Some estimates suggest it could be 10,000 years old. 5,000 years older than the Stonehenge you already know. Many assume this circle must have been sacred, a place of ritual, but Dr. Hawley isn't so sure. He keeps thinking about that long line of stones. To him, the circle isn't the real mystery. The line is, and for a while, nobody can explain what it was for. At first, this doesn't seem important, but then, in 2009, something changes everything. On the far side of the Great Lakes in Lake Huron, an anthropologist named John O'Shea finds something similar. Long lines of stone, circular gathering points, and an explanation waiting quietly inside the evidence. Caribou. Caribou instinctively follow linear formations. It's simply in their nature. Ancient hunters understood this. They built these lines of stone to guide entire herds, funneling them gently, invisibly, toward a hidden trap. A circle where hunters could crouch, unseen, behind the boulders, and a steep drop at the end. So the animals had nowhere left explored. There may be more of them. Still waiting. Still hidden. Leave the lakes behind now. The water changes, the light changes. Soon, even the air feels different. Picture instead the open Mediterranean Sea. It's 2023. A company is scanning the seafloor 55 miles off the coast of Israel, not searching for history, searching for oil. A mile below the surface, a small robotic vehicle glides through complete darkness. Its lights cut narrow cones through black water. For hours, nothing. Sand, silt, featureless plains, and then a mind. Strange shapes protrude from it. Rounded, ancient-looking urns, dozens of them, then hundreds, all piled together, as if something simply came to rest here a very long time ago. The Israeli Antiquities Authority is called in, and beneath the pottery, a ship, roughly 40 feet long. They send down a gentler robot, one built to lift fragile things without shattering them. Slowly, carefully. They bring a few urns to the surface. Inside, there's still preserved material. Researchers suspect oil or wine. The tests on the contents are inconclusive, but the age of the urns. Listen carefully to this number, 3,300 years. Just let that settle for a moment. Imagine that. Those jars were already ancient before Rome even existed. This makes it the oldest deep-water shipwreck ever discovered. Whoever sailed this vessel had no coastline to follow. No landmarks, no compass, only the sun by day, only the stars by night. Crossing a sea that stretches over 1 million square miles. A sea that can turn violent without warning. Imagine standing beside the researchers in that moment. Nobody says anything. Everyone simply stares. Because everyone is realizing the exact same thing. This shouldn't exist. Not yet. Not this old. If this site is ever fully excavated, it could quietly rewrite everything we thought we knew about ancient sailors. But that's only the beginning. Far to the east now, off the coast of Japan, lies Yonaguni Island. Divers come here for the hammerhead sharks that pass through these waters. But in 1986, a local diver named Kiichiro Aratake finds something else. He's 15 feet down when he notices a rock formation that doesn't seem to belong. He follows it, time and time, toward the seafloor. And there, a shape rises out of the gloom. Nearly 80 feet tall, the size of a football field, terraced, angled, almost like a step pyramid. He brings a marine geologist, Masaki Kimura, to see it. And Kimura is struck silent. The geometry, the clean lines, the flat, deliberate surfaces. He names it the Yonaguni Monument, and he begins to wonder, could this be the remains of a lost civilization? Something like the mythical kingdom of Mu, said to have vanished into the Pacific after some ancient catastrophe. It's not unreasonable. This region trembles often with earthquakes. In April of 1771, one of the largest tsunamis in recorded history struck this very coastline, but not everyone agrees. Some geologists argue the sandstone here naturally fractures into straight lines and sharp angles, especially under constant tectonic pressure. And then, in 2024, a stranger theory appears. A small group of researchers propose that structures like this one might not have been built by humans at all, but by something else. Intelligent beings hidden quietly here on Earth. Some now call them cryptoterrestrials. Kimura himself doesn't accept the idea, but without a full excavation, the questions continue, waiting just like everything else down there, in the dark. No, let's go somewhere colder, somewhere older. It's just before Christmas in 1938 in East London, South Africa. A woman named Marjorie Courtney Latimer curates a small natural history museum. She often visits the docks, sifting through the day's catch, looking for anything unusual. On this particular afternoon, her hands moving through slick, silvery piles of fish, something catches her eye. A 5-foot-long fish, bright blue, with 4 strange, fleshy fins that almost resemble limbs. The fisherman, 30 years of experience, has never seen anything like it. Neither has Marjorie. She wants to show it to an expert she knows, but he's away for the holidays, and already the sun is fading the fish from blue to gray. So she calls a local taxidermist, the only way to save it. 8 weeks later, the expert returns, and when he sees the preserved fish, he is stunned. A coelacanth, a species believed extinct for 65 million years, gone, supposedly, alongside the dinosaurs. Over the following decades, more than 300 coelacanths are found, and scientists discover something remarkable about the way they move. Instead of swimming with their tails, coelacanths paddle with their front and back fins, almost as if they are walking through the water. Some believe they may be distantly related to the very first creatures that crawled from the sea onto land. Ancestors, in some quiet, distant way, to horses, to cats, to us. I always imagine what that first glimpse must have felt like, reaching into an ordinary pile of fish and touching something that time itself was supposed to have erased. If Marjorie hadn't insisted on preserving it, it might have simply ended up on someone's Christmas dinner table that year. But rediscovering something long thought extinct is one thing. Finding a creature people believed was only a myth is something else entirely. Picture a quiet Danish beach, just as dawn is breaking. A crowd has gathered around something that washed ashore overnight. It's massive, an amorphous shape. 2 enormous, clouded eyes, a hard, curved beak, like that of a bird, and 10 long limbs, lined with openings that almost resemble small mouths. To the villagers, this looks like something from legend. The Kraken. A creature said to drag entire ships beneath the waves. The villagers cut pieces for bait and bury the rest, but someone keeps a souvenir. The beak. 3 years later, that beak is given to a Norwegian scientist, Japanese Steenstrup. He notices something immediately. It resembles the beak of a squid. Squids use their beaks to crush prey, and the description from that Danish beach matches other squid traits too. Large eyes, 10 limbs, small hooks lining the suckers in certain species. Steenstrup declares a new species, Arctoothus, the giant squid. The myth begins slowly to become science, but the scientific world isn't fully convinced. Not until 1873. In Newfoundland, 2 men and a boy are fishing when they spot something floating nearby. They pull it closer with a hook, and it comes alive. A massive tentacle slings over the side of the boat. The boy grabs an axe and severs part of it as the creature pulls back into the water. They bring the 19-foot tentacle ashore. 1 month later, another boat finds a full giant squid tangled in his nets. A reverend buys it for $10 and documents it in photographs. The first complete specimen ever recovered. Proof, finally, that the Kraken, in some form, was real all along. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What else down in the deep still waits to be proven true? Now, travel with me to Siberia, to the icy banks of a river in Yakutia. A man named Pyotr Efimov walks slowly along the frozen ground, searching for mammoth ivory. A single tusk can sell for as much as $20,000. But today, he's found nothing. that's when he sees it. A clump of fur sticking up from the ice. He kneels. He digs. It's not a tusk. It's a jaw. Smaller teeth than a mammoth. He keeps digging, and slowly a severed head emerges from the ice. At first it looks like a large dog, but the closer he looks, it's a wolf's head. Enormous. Astonishingly well preserved. He thinks immediately of the dire wolf. Extinct for 10,000 years, 6 feet long, nearly 200 pounds. Powerful enough to bring down prey many times its size. Scientists study the head and they're stunned. The skull alone measures 16 inches, far larger than any modern wolf. The fur is so well preserved, the scientist doubts it could really be 10,000 years old. So they run carbon dating. 40,000 years, far older than expected. And this particular species has never been found in this region before. Further study reveals it isn't a dire wolf after all, but a related Pleistocene era wolf, one that also hunted large prey, the first complete, well-preserved specimen of its kind ever discovered. Proof that this ancient predator was bigger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Take another look, if you can, at that image in your mind. A frozen wolf's head, waiting patiently in the ice for 40,000 years. Just waiting. Now let's move somewhere you may already know. A place of geysers and forests and quiet natural beauty. Yellowstone. In 1965, NASA begins a project to map the Earth from space. To calibrate their satellite cameras, they need a reliable place on the ground. Yellowstone becomes their testing ground. A geologist named Bob Christiansen leads the effort, and as part of the work, he collects rock samples for dating. What he finds is strange. Much of Yellowstone's rock is rhyolite, a stone that only forms from light volcanic activity. But there are no active volcanoes here. And yet the data doesn't lie. At first, Christensen assumes an ancient chain of volcanoes, long dormant. But in 1972, when NASA's satellite images are finally complete, he realizes the truth is far stranger. This wasn't a chain of volcanoes at all. It was one single supervolcano. Of the roughly 1,000 volcanoes known on Earth, only about 20 qualify as supervolcanoes. And this is one of the largest ever identified. Its biggest eruption, 2 million years ago, hurled as much as 600 cubic miles of lava and rock into the sky, an explosion 2,500 times larger than Mount St. Helens. And even now, after 500,000 years of dormancy, lava still moves quietly beneath Yellowstone's surface. In 2022, a study published in the journal Science reveals that the magma chambers beneath the park are filling more rapidly than expected. Combined with the roughly 3,000 earthquakes Yellowstone experiences every year, some begin to wonder if the volcano is stirring again. If it were to erupt as it once did, the debris could block sunlight across the western United States for decades, considering it has already remained quiet for 500,000 years. We can only hope for at least that much longer. But not every mystery hides beneath fire and stone. Some hide behind narrow stone tunnels deep beneath the sea. In 1985, a diver named Henri Cosquer is exploring the waters near Cape Morgiou, south of Marseille. He notices a hole in the cliffside about 100 feet down, just wide enough to swim through. He enters. The passage curves upward into darkness, over 200 feet, narrowing the further he goes. Fragile stalagmites line the walls. One wrong move, and he could become trapped. He turns back. For years, he keeps the discovery to himself, but eventually he realizes there's safety in returning with others. In 1991, he leads a small group of divers back through the tunnel, and this time, they reach the end. horses, penguins, even a jellyfish. And then, something else. A handprint stenciled onto the rock. One finger missing. As they look closer, they realize there are many such hands, all along the walls. They photograph everything and head for the surface. But before Cosquer can share the discovery properly, 4 other divers find the entrance on their own. Under-equipped. No spare tanks, no safety line. Their fins stir up the silt, clouding the water until they can't see each other at all. 3 of them drowned that day. I always find this part difficult to sit with. A place of such quiet beauty and such sudden danger existing in the very same breath. Cosquer eventually hands his photographs to French authorities, and Navy divers begin a careful survey of the cave. They count more than 500 paintings. Carbon dating reveals the oldest images are 27,000 years old. People returned again and again over 14,000 years to add more. But it's the hand stencils that draw the most attention. At first, researchers assume mutilation, but similar hand images found elsewhere suggest something else entirely. A visual code, perhaps the oldest known form of written communication ever discovered, predating anything else we know by more than 20,000 years. Researchers believe the cave once held 4 or 5 times as many images as it does now. Before rising, sea slowly washed the rest away. It's estimated the remaining art may vanish completely within 14 years. A team of artists and scientists are now racing to recreate it in a museum in Marseille before the sea finishes what it started so long ago. Let's come back up to the surface now. To dry land, to a forest. Imagine you're part of a work crew, deep in dense foliage, preparing for a large operation. One of your team, a man named Kit Rogers, is wading through the undergrowth when he notices something. Not a tree, not a rock, an iron door. He pries it open and finds a narrow shaft leading down into a hidden chamber, 23 feet long, 10 feet wide, broken bed frames inside. Almost nothing else survives. But at the far end, there's an escape hatch. He suspects immediately what he's found. One of the legendary Churchill bunkers. During the darkest days of the World War II, fearing a German invasion, Winston Churchill secretly formed what became known as the auxiliary units. Ordinary farmers and miners trained not as soldiers but as a last resort resistance. An army designed to fight to the death, if it ever came to that. To give them a fighting chance, they needed the element of surprise. So, across Britain, an estimated 500 hidden bunkers were built. Entrances disguised from the sky. The invasion never comes, and when the war ends, the units disband. The bunkers are simply left behind. Forgotten. To this day, only around 200 have ever been found. When investigators examine this newly discovered bunker, comparing it to known Churchill sites, the match is confirmed. Its exact location remains undisclosed. But somewhere out there, in the English countryside, there may still be hundreds more, quietly waiting. Under the grass, off the coast of Germany, in the Bay of Gelting, a diver from the World Wildlife Fund descends to retrieve a lost fishing net. As he approaches, he notices the net is snagged on a strange, dark object, covered in small white markings. Looking closer, he realizes the markings are letters. Like an old typewriter, he brings it to the surface, but it isn't a typewriter at all. It's a Nazi M3 Enigma cipher machine. The cracking of the naval Enigma code is believed to have shortened the Second World War by an entire year. So how did one end up at the bottom of a bay? In the final weeks before Germany's surrender in 1945, the High Command ordered Operation Regenbogen. Both U-boats and surface ships were to be deliberately scuttled, sunk by their own crews. never sees them. In Gelting Bay alone, around 50 U-boats went down, many carrying Enigma machines with them. Of the more than 40,000 Enigma machines built during the war, fewer than 300 survive today. This particular machine could have sold for as much as $500,000 at auction. Instead, the divers chose to donate it. Today, you can see it on display at the Museum of Archaeology in Schleswig. A quiet reminder of the brainpower it took to defeat a war machine. Now, picture East Berlin, April 22nd, 1956. Rain has been falling for days. A work crew is sent underground, searching for a break in a telephone cable. It's the middle of the night, and their shovels strike something unexpected. Concrete, where none should be. Curious, they break through. Just enough to peer inside. What they find is a hidden chamber filled with sophisticated equipment. Further investigation reveals something extraordinary. A secret tunnel connecting communist East Berlin to the American, British, and French sectors of West Berlin. By the time it's discovered, the CIA has already gathered 40,000 hours of recorded conversations, compiled into over 1,700 intelligence reports, troop movements, nuclear programs, military locations across Europe. An extraordinary intelligence windfall, but 5 years later, in 1961, the story takes an unexpected turn. British intelligence arrests one of their own agents, George Blake, a double agent, secretly feeding information to the Soviets. Blake confesses that he had told the Soviets about the tunnel years before it was ever built. So why didn't they expose it sooner? Because doing so would have exposed Blake himself, and the intelligence flowing to Moscow through him was simply too valuable to lose. But in 1956, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, preparing for a visit to the West, decides the tunnel could be useful leverage after all, so the Soviets stage the discovery, using the excuse of a broken cable to reveal the tunnel publicly, without ever exposing their spy. There was never anything wrong with the telephone lines at all. The entire discovery was simply a story, written by the very people it seemed to expose. Now, travel further east to a small, quiet village in northwest China in 1974. A severe drought has gripped the land. Farmers here need water, and with none in sight, they begin digging wells by hand. By the third day, they've reached about 15 feet down. One worker, young Tifa, feels his shovel strike something solid. Not stone. Something else. He keeps digging, and slowly the broken head of a sculpture emerges from the earth. The villagers are afraid to touch it. In this region, uncovering broken statues is considered a bad omen. Something tied to ancestors. Something sacred and dangerous, best left undisturbed. But word spreads quickly, and government archaeologists arrive to investigate. What they uncover is staggering. One by one, enormous terracotta warriors emerge from the soil. Each one unique, in height, in uniform, in hairstyle, depending on rank. Armed with real bronze weapons, some mounted on horses and chariots. In total, more than 8,000 figures are eventually unearthed. One of the most extraordinary archaeological discoveries in modern history. The site lies close to the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor, buried nearly 2,000 years earlier. Archaeologists conclude the army was carved and buried to protect the emperor in the afterlife, but not everyone celebrates the find. Local legend holds that disturbing this land could bring misfortune. And in the years that follow, several of the original discoverers fall into deep poverty. One develops a skin disease, Another dies at home, in pain, never understanding why. In 1997, one of the original diggers, Young Bae-han, takes his own life. For the villagers evicted from their homes to make way for the museum built around this discovery, it can feel as though the curse they feared truly did come to pass. Sit with that for a moment. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries carry the heaviest cost for the people who find them first. And finally, let's end somewhere quieter. A field in England. 1785. A farmer near Silchester is plowing his land when something catches the light. A gold ring, 10-sided, with a square bezel bearing an image of the goddess Venus. Latin words are carved into it. A dedication, roughly translated as Sine Janus, live in God. The ring is sold and largely forgotten, until 1805, when a family in Gloucestershire begins renovating their garden. They uncover the ruins of an ancient temple dedicated to Nodens, a Celtic god of healing. 2 years into the excavation, something else is found. A small lead tablet inscribed with a curse. This one reads, roughly, for the god Nodens, Silvianus has lost a ring. Do not allow the thief Sinigianus any good health until the ring is returned. It isn't until 1928 that renowned archaeologist Sir Mortimer Wheeler connects the two discoveries. The ring, with Sinigianus' name engraved on it, and the cursed tablet naming the very same man as a thief. Wheeler believes Sinigianus stole the ring from Silvianus and inscribed his own name on it to disguise the theft. When Silvianus discovered what happened, he called upon the god Nodens for vengeance. The ring and the temple lie about 80 miles apart, both along an ancient route known as the Devil's Highway. The ring finally went on public display in 2013, and here is the strangest detail of all. Wheeler had help interpreting the ancient inscriptions from an Oxford scholar of the old languages named J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien would go on to write, just a few years later, about a stolen cursed ring in a book called The Hobbit, and later in The Lord of the Rings. Coincidence or inspiration? We will never really know. Take a slow breath, let it out. Maybe the greatest mysteries aren't hidden because they're impossible to find. Maybe they simply wait for someone patient enough to notice them. A diver following a line of stones. A curator reaching into a pile of fish. A farmer plowing an ordinary field. Each of them just paying attention at exactly the right moment. And perhaps the next great mystery is already waiting. Not beneath an ocean, not beneath a mountain. Maybe it's simply somewhere no one has looked yet. Until then, let the silence keep its secrets. Rest now, and let this stay